Welcome, everyone. I'm Angelo Robles. It's a great pleasure to do a private Zoom that I feel I haven't done in a long, long time. I've become Mr. StreamYard lives and social media broadcasting lately. We'll get to that in a second. So this is fantastic. This is really what I would call a private Zoom. And again, I haven't done one in a while. Really excited to be here. Great to see some old friends in the Zoom and some that I don't know. So to give a little bit of context, because we have so many new folks that are coming on and will see this, Angelo Robles. Many of you would have known me from being the founder and long-term CEO, what feels like for multiple decades. It's making me feel too old, though, a Family Office Association. I had an opportunity to have a wonderful exit earlier this year in 2023. I think the new ownership and management is going to do a great job at Family Office Association, and I wish them nothing but the best. And I appreciate all of you over my many, many years that were supportive. I had a chance to really know very, very little about the family office community decades ago, and I might have learned a thing or two over the decades, but it took a lot of work. And again, I'm greatly appreciative to all that were involved in Family Office Association. But it's a new world. I had an opportunity to travel, to meet with amazing people, to reflect, and really put my knowledge and some level of expertise to work in terms of my passion and what I want to do moving forward, which will always and forever, my heart's 100% dedicated to the family office community, and really more exclusively to the single family office community. And I do look to provide incredible insight today through, I'm going to pass over the baton shortly in about one more minute to our special guest who you could see. And really, I'm kind of the special guest. She's really the host, and that would be Tosh Salas, everyone. But before I officially do that and give her the reins to grill me and ask really tough questions that hopefully provide tremendous value to all of you, a little bit of context. So I had a chance to create, I guess you could call it my 2.0, now that I'm decades in terms of what I'm doing. And I have an enterprise holding company in the wonderful state of Wyoming. My main focus is on Family Office Masterclass. That is a deep, immersive educational platform. Yes, I also own the great media arm because I do a lot of interviews at Family Office TV. So before I turn it over to Tosh, I would recommend, because a lot of you, although not as much on this Zoom, that I reached out in a different way, I have been doing a lot of content and providing value on my social media platforms. I have a pretty significant following on LinkedIn. If you don't follow me, Angelo Robles, simply look it up and follow. I have two very active YouTube platforms, one of them probably the largest in the community, that would be at Family Office, and my newer one that I kind of hinted at a second ago, Family Office TV. I am active on multiple platforms, and really my new website and best way to reach me is angelorobles.com. Easy, it simply is my name.com. So on that note, today, I want to do a special private session, and I really want to provide what I hope to be a tremendous amount of value. And I think that could best be done through someone that I respect, to have an opportunity to lead an interview with me, to question me on certain things I say, and hopefully to bring the best out of me. So today it's going to be think like and speak the language of the ultra wealthy. That's formally defined as $30 million and up. In my community, probably closer to 100 million and up. And over my years, I've been very fortunate to have had personal interaction and relationships with 40 plus billionaires, over 300 centimillionaires, and wow, lucky me, over 1,000 single family offices. So, and I have a long way to go. This has been great. At the heart of it, being a researcher and providing value, it's been nothing but a joy. On that note, I'm kind of going to turn over the reins to our host today, not even really our special guest, and that would be Tosh Salas, founder of Capital Alignment, and coming to us from out of the US, because I've been very, very international, specifically lately. Tosh, I would say welcome, which I will, but also the floor is yours. You're the boss. Do what you got to do.
Thank you. Those are my favorite words. Thank you for saying I'm the boss. I knew that already. It's always great that the audience knows me. No, so thank you for those kind words, Angelo. It's a true pleasure to be here and to have that amazing introduction, which is really that you're trusting me uh, to get the best out of you. And that is such a beautiful and special gift for me. For those that don't know me, I'm just an attorney in the world of finance. I work with ultra high net worth individuals and executives in the single family office space. My biggest passion has always been in the dynamics of businesses, people, and I have a little obsession with success and what makes someone successful versus someone who doesn't. So knowing a little bit about Angelo and the impact and transformation that he has been part of in this space of private capital, family offices, ultra high net worth individuals, when he had his exit from Family Office Association, I reached out to Angelo because I was intrigued and also fascinated for what was coming. And he already shared a little bit about like his master class. And I want you, audience, to get what I had the opportunity to see in Angelo, which is what is his mission behind the masterclass, right? Because when you are in an industry, you realize there's certain problems and somehow you want to solve them, right? That's what makes a great entrepreneur. And I think Angelo is a great entrepreneur. And again, it's an honor to be here. It's fabulous to be the boss. So, without any further comments, Angelo, this is something that I always want to ask you every time I talk to you. 2 weeks ago, we had a live, and the question was, what do you see in the world happening that really matters at a macro and micro level that can influence, yes, the world, but that's pretty obvious, right? But more specifically, the lives and situation of the ultra wealthy and global families.
Wow, I mean, that's a big question. So I do fashion myself as a little bit of a hopefully educated but amateur economist and geopolitical strategist, and tying that into the family office world. And I think a part of the challenge that I've seen in the community, and you could argue now that I have a bit of a step back and reflection over 6 months, a lot of it's very vanilla, very dry, very down the middle, and incredibly repetitive off what others are saying. There is a tremendous, and I mean, it is a glaring lack of being direct, of also being creative. And you're going to hear me use a word. You could either be a historian or you could be a revolutionary. And I'm going to get to how that plays into the family office world shortly. I think being a historian is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But being a revolutionary, someone who breaks new grounds, who's hyper creative, I think is something that is incredibly lacking in the community. And I hope to bring a little bit of that. So I hope many of you enjoy it. What I did forget to mention about the platforms that I described before that are all free, right? LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. Not only am I actively posting content with moderately significant followings, I'm doing a lot of lives. That means live broadcasts that are in the moment. You get a notice on your phone, and I'm doing deep dives. I'm not talking 5-minute commentaries, although I could perhaps benefit from that. I'm talking me giving really deep thinking on a lot of key topics and still interviewing amazing people. Don't forget, over the years at FOA and my own platforms, I've interviewed Ray Dalio, Steve Cohen, Peter Thiel, General Wesley Clark, founding commander of SEAL Team 6, Dick Marcinko, Tony Robbins, and many others. And hopefully I might have learned a thing or two after doing this for so many years. So in specifically answering your question, this will probably be my longest answer because I think I need to set a foundation. I promise it'll move a little smoother after that. But I think going back to what I said and what you asked in terms of the macro and the micro, I think this is incredibly important for families and SFOs. Now, don't forget the vast majority of work that I do since I launched my enterprises this summer, and they're kind of in full swing right now, is really dedicated directly to the family of wealth and the single family office. But I started to get a lot of people in the advisory community to reach out to me and say like, wow, I love the work that you're doing. It seems incredibly creative. Do you do any work with folk like us? And I really didn't overly think about that until really just a couple of weeks ago. And I do believe the opportunity for a select few of you, which we'll get to, is going to be to really be incredible. You absolutely could be top 1% of what you do. And I'm going to give you the metrics of how to do that. And it's actually easier than you think as we progress in our discussion today. So the macro, the velocity of destruction happening for the super rich and what keeps them up at night. And don't forget, at heart, I'm a researcher. That's what I love to do, is to talk to them every day, Zoom, go in person, smoke cigars where I could, and really get insight from them. The velocity of destruction is scary. We look at the geopolitical landscape and economics and how it intertwines with the wealthy and how the world works. What I've learned, there's a lot more going on that you don't know than you know. Yes, the world is in chaos. Yes, I guess I could have went back 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago and said the same thing, but it is different now. Sir John Templeton said that 20% of the time that we overuse that phrase, but 20% of the time it's true. So we have an interconnected world. We have a more nuclear world, a more dangerous world, a more volatile world, and a world that simply is very, very different than how the world works with how we learned in school, even 10 years ago versus now. I'm sorry, it's totally different. We have to also understand in this country, for the Americans, zooming in, we have a massive deficit. It's $33 trillion and rapidly growing. Have you ever seen, and I'm pretty old, political bifurcation like this ever before with an upcoming election? We have inflation that is not yet under control. And I could argue for the super rich, from what they tell me, with higher assets is actually greater than what's reported. And interest rates that, could get, to say the least, interesting and are probably never in our, well, never say never, but in our lifetime, going to be the way they were for much of the last 15 years, like artificially low. And the impact that's going to have on stocks and assets of the super rich. The world is going from unipolar for many years to what I would call bipolar to really multipolar. It's not just the US. It's not even just the US and China. Look at BRICS. We may get into a little bit of that, where really now it's 11 countries in total. And what they're looking to do as what I would call a threat to the US dollar and hegemony. And I always mispronounce that word, but you get the gist of it. The US will do anything, and I could argue should, relative to keep the dollar the all-powerful. Now, again, some of you probably didn't expect for me to get a little bit into more of a geopolitical and macro discussion. But if you want to know what the rich, the billionaires, are talking about, what keeps them up at night, and what can make you different as being a deeper thinker and thinking through things more than just you're in finance, you're in accounting, you're in legal, you're in cyber, these are a lot of the issues. And I'll give you one. For a lot of citizens around the world, even non-US, it's still 90%. But for a US citizen, come on, even billionaires, I'm going to say 99% of their assets are tied to the US dollar. What would happen if that were to lose some level of power, power and global currency dominance, which in time will eventually happening, but we're seeing holes in that now, coupled with our deficit, coupled with other problems. We could be talking about, again, these people are already, even if they're only 30 million, depending on where they came from, what their goals are and what their distribution patterns are, they're still in the top, 0.001%. Like, they're concerned about, I want to make sure that I don't lose what I got. Like, their concern is about issues relative to that. So when it comes down to the biggest concerns of families, or we're going to get to some of those questions that I led with in my email to help drive you to this, a lot of it comes down to family continuity. So the optionality to a lot of this is liquidity. And we're going to come back to that word liquidity later, because that is the answer effectively to one of the questions among the two that I led with in my email to all of you. On the micro picture, I would say the biggest threat to the super rich, it's internal. By the way, if you walk away from today with nothing else, and I've done this for a gazillion years, the biggest threat to the family in terms of their wealth, which includes financial, but is deeper than that, the super rich, is the family. The biggest threat is the family. So what does this come down to? This comes down to some degree of internal governance. We may get into a little bit of that. It really is competency, how decisions are made, the capacity for critical thinking. And like Ray Dalio says, he says the same thing. It's competency, identifying blind spots, and moving ego aside. As we get older and we have some level of successes, I do understand sometimes that latter one, and sometimes, honestly, all of them are a little bit challenging. So that comes down to how do you build competency and good decision making in the family. Take this away as well. Be careful of overusing the word with families protect. I get it. I hedge risk. I like that word too. The verbiage that you want to switch in what you're talking about, it's a softer word. You want to talk more about preparing the family. That's what makes them, using Taleb's words in his great book, Anti-Fragile, and yes, we've had him too, that builds anti-fragility. You always cocooning and protecting them is not necessarily going to do that. You want to have the ability to prepare them. Okay, listen up, important comment. This comes down to capacity and capability, which leads to competence. Capacity revolves around the underlying ability of the family to adapt to changing and challenging circumstances. And we know, I've been talking about sovereign risk and disaster preparedness since I entered into a significant consulting assignment during COVID for a Forbes 20 family. It didn't take this weekend for a lot of this to come more to the forefront with me. This just aggravates it. Strictly speaking, from a geopolitical and economic perspective, this world is incredibly volatile, incredibly. And that's a grave concern. So the ability of competency within the family, which also relates to the capacity, and I was mentioning the capability, developments within the family to gain competency and skills in the management of personal finances, trust structures, governance, business, philanthropy, and so much other. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you. And again, the problem with some of this industry and what you may get in the family office world, and I was part of the problem. I do understand. I do understand that. There's a lack of deep intellectual rigor. There's a lack of more revolutionary thinking. And then we didn't really share it. Now, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So we can't share what we're, I hate to be a little harsh, but too ignorant to know. But I'm talking about these are the issues. They're not that complicated per se, but if you have a deeper understanding of these issues, that allows you to be more tactical in your approach, and it allows you to come across as more educated, to some degree more worldly, and more understanding of the generations within the family. Walk away with the value of competency, which is correlated to the capacity and capability within the family. I said this was going to be my longest answer. I believe they're going to be shorter for the following ones, Tosh, but I think I needed to set a very strong foundation.
Thank you, Angelo. I hope that is not your longest question, because that was amazing. Definitely a class by itself. And I have so many questions and comments, of course. So, you started saying something very important. This was not part of your answer, but I think this should answer a lot of things for the families, for their advisors, for their executives. It is a new world. And a new world requires new ways. We cannot solve new problems with old tactics. We can certainly use timeless principles, but the reality is that something else is needed. Things change. Now, things have always changed. That's not news. I think the difference right now in the world that we live in, it's actually about two things. One, and you brought it up consistently, it's about I'm gonna use the word complexity, like it's more complex, right? Not necessarily complicated, definitely more complex, okay? And it's also happening faster and faster, right? Which we're now talking about what you said, velocity of what did you say? Velocity of destruction. So destruction is a word that, you know, it implies change, but it has a negative connotation, right? So I want to say there's velocity of change, which if you're not prepared, it can lead to destruction. But in reality, I think, you know, the concept is great. I think understanding what makes it so urgent in this moment is what really matters. Change is always going to be there. It's happening very, very fast. And families, individuals that have a more complex life are desperately needing help to navigate these situations. And I think that's also the reason why advisors have started reaching out to you, because we need to help each other. This is beyond a person. This is beyond a family. This is about really like integrating perspectives and visions. And one of the things that you said at the beginning, which I hope the audience caught, was that this is not just you talking about what's happening, because I'm sure, you know, Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg, I mean, they read it, they read it every day, right? They know what's going on. But are they seeing it from the perspective of all these individuals that you've interviewed and you've literally got their insights, their mindset of how to look at things? I don't think so. So thank you again for sharing that in perspective of who you have become by spending time with this type of individuals. The other thing is, well, you know, definitely rich people are looking to a place where they can put their money. So you talk a lot about the you talk about a lot about the assets of the families, right? And also that's just the assets. So the money part, I'm just going to say it like that. Wealth, as you said, it's way more complex, right? And it really starts internally, right? In order to stay in the continuity of the family, you have to start with the family, right? And what I like about what you just said is that it's completely true. What I have a hard time, and I want you to just, this is the next question, right? I want you to dive a little bit deeper, Angelo, in what is the problem with the family, right? Because if we just say like the family is the problem, we're not really providing an answer for the audience. What is the problem with the family? Like I have two ideas, right? But I definitely want to hear yours first, and then I'll share mine. Maybe we'll complement each other. But what would you say is like the hardest part in the dynamics of family? You said competency, sorry. You said competency, capability, but can you just go like a little bit more granular? Try to go more deep.
I think the audience understands the statistics of most families of great wealth, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. There's a variety of factors for that. And a small part of it can occasionally be over time, investing, bad decisions with investing, taxation, and proper wealth transfer. All of them are subjects that I enjoy, I love, and they're very important. But they don't hold a candle to the biggest threat in the family is the family. It's married into the family, changes in culture, not adapting potentially. I'm not saying the culture is it's our culture, you change to us. There sometimes needs to be a balanced nuance to that with new blood in the family provides a level of value. There needs to be an understanding between the elders. And I know I'm sounding like an old man saying that because I guess I'm an elder. And those that are in between and those that are the rising generation in the family that has a different set of education, of culture and morals, and has different belief systems and how they process information. We're not going to make this a quote unquote a political discussion or a war of the generations, but there are nuances and differences. We have to wake up to that reality. If you're working in a family office or working for a family office, and in case you're wondering, and I was quoted recently in Financial Advisor by Russ Allen Prince, and this may be an insight as an advisor in terms of where you can have an in, when there's a transition within the family, the elders step back, the elders get disabled, no one lives forever, the elders die, the rising generation comes up. What do you think happens to the advisors in a stodgy, which is almost always the case? And by the way, most single family offices, I know it's not mathematically an accurate comment, are really not that good. And in some ways, you should be happy with that, because that means there's a lack of quantifiable metrics. There's a lack of understanding best practices. And through me or through other sources or through your own competency, that allows you to provide value. But in answering my own question, what happens is the rising generation will switch advisors often within the family office, and I could argue some often rightfully so. And how about advisors? And by the way, the average billionaire has 27 different, did you hear that? Advisors out there, 27 different on average outside vendor relationships that they use, legal, accounting, finance, cyber, etc. They can't do everything internal. So this again goes back to the area of there's going to be transitions in the family. How are you engaging with the rising generation? That is going to be very important. How empathetic, how good of a listener are you? Maybe that takes me a little bit to a quote, which is going to sound not too related to your question, but indirectly it is, from Tony Robbins. I've interviewed Tony both at his studios in front of thousands of people in Palm Beach and in person in Santa Monica a couple of years ago. He had a quote that kind of changed my life. And damn it, it cost me a lot of money initially.
It usually does.
You will fail for the simple reason you don't have the right skills to succeed. That insight led me to reflect on my competency, my blind spots, and my ego, and say I'm pretty good. I might even be good, but am I great? Am I top 1%? No. So that led me on a course over 4 years to learn, to travel, to be humbled. Everyone has something to teach me that I don't know, that I could be better every day. And I spend hours every day because of my passion dedicated to single family offices. And I'm not kidding, hours scouring the world, reading journals, talking to people, getting introductions from billionaires and families about people they use in their services so I could meet and I could learn from them. So I had to put money into investing in my competency, but more than my competency, if you're an advisor to the family office community, how about your capability to market and to sell? If you're not able to communicate, if you're not able to show empathy, if you're not able to understand social media and new metrics about how things work, you will have a hard time. Yeah, you could read a book by Alex Hormozy and his wonderful wife, Layla, and that's all great. That's all valuable. But what action are you taking on it? And how are you executing? And as opposed to reading the book, maybe you should be spending a pretty good amount of money going to a program, interacting, immersing, and learning how you could put that to work. So I've spent a lot of money, like I said, 6 figures on that, really only in the last couple of years. And I wouldn't trade it in for everything. It was very, very valuable to me. The good news, in another way, and maybe I was wrong about the first one being my longest answer, I'm going to give this analogy that I give to my family offices a fair amount. And I think it's going to provide some interesting insight. What is there? 12 people on an NBA basketball team, or is it 15 now? Even I'm confused. I'm a sports fan. Let's say it's 12. Most family offices are a hell of a lot closer to being the 12th man, let's call it, let's say it's NBA, 12th man on an NBA bench versus being in the 8-man rotation, being in the starting 5, and being a Michael Jordan or LeBron James. They're not that close. Now, in the world of the NBA, that 12th man has no chance of ever becoming Michael Jordan or LeBron James. I don't care their mindset. I don't care what they eat, what supplements they take, what level of coaching they have. They should be able to get better, but they're not going to be incredible. The good news is in the family office world, and I think the advisory world that services the family office, that benchmark may not be quite that high, meaning you could go if you have the internal competency, identify blind spots and ego, are willing to learn, are willing to be mentored, are willing to accelerate your knowledge. You could absolutely go. And I know I use that word a lot, top 1%, but the benchmarking in family offices to be that is so low. Now, maybe in 10 years, when the competency levels are drastically coming up, that may be a little unrealistic because only 1% could be the top 1%. Maybe. So, okay, maybe my aspiration of you being even top 1% is a little on the high side. Fine. You fail at that and you become top 10%. That probably beats the median, the average, where a lot of people are now. You have more in you than you think you do. You have the capability of being the best version of yourself, not just who you are now is good enough. No, it's not. And I tell that even to wealth creators who are billionaires. And it doesn't mean they're going to make more money, but it means they're going to be better people, better husbands or wives, better fathers, better sons or daughters, better people in society. Again, there's lots of ways that we could enhance and we could have an opportunity to improve. I do go back to what I said about competency. I know I say that a lot, but that matters, about capacity and capability. These are all important. If I had to give you some metrics that we learn as consultants, that's pretty simple and straightforward. Why don't you look at what problems you're solving? You don't know what problems you're solving until you have a conversation with your client. In this case, the ultra high net worth at $30 million and up. So what problems are you solving? How are you going to go about solving those problems? Now you have to flesh out the solutions, gather requirements, identify deliverables, define project scope. And then the next question is, what is your plan to get that project done? I mean, is that really that hard? I mean, I'm giving you basically 4 to 5 steps that you would learn in, I don't know, maybe you don't learn it in school, you learn it at McKinsey. It's not super hard. And that helps to provide a framework for you to follow that I think is very valuable. I went a little off track to your question, Tosh, but I think these are all things that could be learned. I mean, is it really that hard? I'm assuming if you're an advisor, you have a given skill set. How is the family going to quantify the capability of your skill set? You want me to give you another analogy? I ask a billionaire, we're in the same town, I need a dentist. Who do you use? Oh, my dentist is the best. Well, I'm saying to myself, did you go to dental school? Did you compare every dentist in town? It's a little bit of ego, but and by the way, there really is no such thing as confidence. Listen to that. Confidence can't be measured. What you really mean is competence. When you're competent, you have what you perceive as confidence because you have the capability through your knowledge and your experiences and sometimes doing it over and over. I wasn't born a good speaker. It's debatable if I'm even one to begin with, but I do know I identified it as an important skill and I put in the work to be the best version of myself that I could be with that. And that was impactful in my career. But that didn't come naturally. That didn't come in 1 hour of reading. That came through hundreds of hours of preparation that gave me the competence, again, is the word that I'm looking for. Pardon me, Tosh.
No, please don't apologize yourself. That was fantastic. And that was actually what I was trying to get. Because people have a really hard time with abstract concepts. And I think you went in perfect detail of what the real problem is. And if I could summarize it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, when you're dealing with ultra wealthy people, and if the audience doesn't know this, please know this very well, they're going to test you. They're going to test you every step of the way. Your email, your message, your frequency, what you talk about, your question, they're going to test you. Okay. And so when it comes to competency, because there's no like actual ways to just measure it in a simple way, they just have to let you do your job. they're still looking for something else. And that's something else, Angelo, you just kind of said it, but you didn't. It's your ability to communicate in any words, in any way. Communication as a speaker, communication in an email, communication in your body language, communication, because the competence is for high net worth individuals. The ability to express, integrate, communicate, lay complex situations over and over, engage with groups, it's for the ultra wealthy, right? So the ability, the skill that you can easily, not easily, but well, yeah, easily, yes, but it just takes time, easily develop, is your ability to communicate, right? Now, how that plays into the family dynamics, I always like to share this example with people, Angela, because it's so simple, yet so powerful. My dad had this, well, he has an obsession with having the house impeccable. It looks like nobody lives there. Even my nieces and nephews, they ask when they were babies, like, why does grandpa keeps the house so clean? It's so weird. It's just like so strange. He's a doctor. And so when he asked me to clean something in the kitchen, I thought I did a great job. I was like, my dad's going to be so proud of me for cleaning this well. He arrives and he yells like, Tosh, what did I talk to you about this morning? And I was like, I thought I did a great job. Let's see what he's talking about, right? And so I went to the kitchen and I saw in the place where you wash the dishes, I forgot the name of it, I saw nothing but perfection. And my dad was like, do you see that? Like, do you see how dirty that is? And I was like, no, Dad, I honestly don't know what you're talking about. Well, I see this. And then when he showed me something, I was like, I swear to God, I was like, wow, we don't see the same things, even when we're looking at the same things. So where your master class is and the education plays a key role, and I think people really, really underestimate this, is that it helps people at least aligned in similar understanding of things, so they can see the same thing and understand the same thing, because otherwise we're coming from different backgrounds, right? So a master class, a piece of information, it's just like it's laying different layers as a foundation for people to communicate. And when you talk about like communication intergenerational, it's even more important to have a base from where we can take off and have a conversation. And that is not just for ultra wealthy families. Of course, this is for any family, but we don't really see these things as important because information seems to be basic. You know, it seems to be everywhere. It seems to be free. Yes, sure. But is that just information, or what you're looking for? It's a base, a frame where we can all come here together and take it from here, right? And I think that is missing. It's communication overall. You mentioned it with a few different things, even for advisors, right? About marketing and selling. Do they know how to communicate with their clients, right? Because that is really an art. It's really about being competent, but competency is like the minimum you ever have to have. If you're not competent, forget about it. You're not going to work with rich people. If you're not competent and you're a wealthy person, well, probably you were not the self-made person, because we know that self-mades are competent, right? It took them a very hard time to get there. So competency must be there.
Oops, Tosh, you might have froze. Audience, give me either in the Q&A or text if you could hear me fine and it's just Tosh. That would be helpful. Then I would know to continue. But Tosh, at least on your end, you froze. I appear to be moving in screen, so I think I'm good. Someone just sent in a response. You're good. Okay, Tosh, something on your end. Tosh is international, so that could be a little more challenging. That was very insightful. So what I will do is I will make a comment that's going to be startling to some of you. And again, I know it's not overly politically correct. There's a variety of ways we could go with it. Tosh, you might be muted coming into Zoom.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. I don't know for how long I was gone.
No, it's okay. You're international, and sometimes with Wi-Fi and global Zooms, and me here in the US, and no one knows if I'm in Greenwich or Jackson, Wyoming, or any other one of the great locations that I love to go to.
Blame the infrastructure.
I was going to make a startling comment that actually indirectly builds upon what you said. I guess I like pauses of impact. Maybe that's what I could call it. The vast majority of advisors are replaceable. They're a commodity. There are some where their specialized knowledge is so incredible and so great. I'm not going to tell you who. There was an accountant who retired a couple of years ago in Chicago. Chicago seems to have a whole bunch of deep thinker and thought leaders in the family office world. This person's specialized knowledge that sometimes pushed certain boundaries was so deep that is very rare, and that is okay. The family understands that potentially it could be a commodity in legal accounting and this or that, but how you develop the relationship with the family, your interaction with them, how you go above and beyond the call of duty. My relationships, and maybe this is sad about my life, my relationships could reach out to me 24/7. My phone is on, it's by my bed. I only sleep 5 hours a day. I get woken up, proper English, I guess, by occasional DMs or what's up from around the world. Maybe they're insensitive to the fact that I'm in a different time zone. It is what it is. If they're paying me and I'm a relationship of theirs, then I mean, maybe I should have better boundaries. I hear you. And there are times where I do, where I shut the phone off, but I'm there and I look to over deliver. Actually, I think I've also learned that one from Tony Robbins. To some degree, you want to over promise. I know that sounds a little weird, but then over deliver on your over promise. And I think that's going to be very, very important. When you're dealing with people that have optionality, that have options, you as a strictly a commodity, which, I mean, maybe I'll put myself in that realm as well. I have to enhance my competency so much where I'm just so much more knowledgeable than anyone else in the community. That came from my dedication, my sacrifices, my discipline, and decades. Now, I really do believe in the family office world, and I say this with the straightest face possible. I could probably teach you in about a week, like 90% of what I know, and then you'll have access to me after that. What I kind of mean by that is, let's even assume you're probably smarter than me. What took me 20 years, maybe you could condense in 7 years, fine. But is it worth it for you? Is it more effective and slightly more efficient? Well, way more efficient to condense that, which basically means time and energy, and how we reflect on that is money, monetary compensation. So the opportunity to participate in what I've built, I have 3 core master classes: creating or reimagining into a top 1% family office. And absolutely, that's foundational, that's anchor, that's the most comprehensive masterclass ever that has been created. There's no such thing as 1 hour, a half-day masterclass. That's bullshit. I don't even know how I could squeeze it in 24 hours, meaning 24 working hours, but I try. And then you get additional content through video interviews and things after that. So it's actually much deeper. But there is no, and I know like everyone in the community, in Singapore and Germany, in the UK and Australia and the US, what's going on. Like that program, it's not just me. It's my dream team of lecturers and relationships. When I go into a Forbes 20, like I said before, who is your T&E attorney? Who's your accountant? That doesn't assume that they're good, although it's a little bit of a likelihood, but make that intro because I want to get to meet them. So building a great dream team, which is deeper than competency, it's interpersonal human dynamics or relationships that all matter relative to that. But I really do believe if you were to go through my program, which is not cheap, I'm not saying it is, you know what? You go to a family office program for free, like what value? Like you're the appetizer. Like the sharks are just going to come get you. And I know some of you have been the sharks in those kind of situations, but you really find those events to be any good? I know I was kind of a part. I mean, I did a good job within that framework, but I was a bit of that problem as well. So the opportunity for families to commit and pay to be a part of something. Hey, this masterclass is this, or an advisor. I could take you from 0 to 100 in just a couple of days and make you more knowledgeable more knowledgeable than probably 90% plus of the people working in a family office. And you don't think that wouldn't position you in a powerful position as an advisor? By the way, the second masterclass came from a massive consulting assignment I had for a huge family, tens of billions, sovereign risk and disaster preparedness. That would make you stand out. And that's incredibly timely in today's world where everything is upside down. What you learned, how the world works, is changing. And I kind of led a little bit of my conversation from your first question around a lot of those subjects. I've dedicated literally hundreds and hundreds of hours to that subject. I've spoken to top government officials, retired, active, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, finance, investment banking, and formed my own thoughts about how to address issues pertaining to sovereign risk. Again, the families are already rich. They're already rich. It's family continuity and how they're going to remain that way. My third one is family offices and AI. And I did something on a live a couple of weeks ago, and I was shocked that some of the advisors that were viewing into the LinkedIn or YouTube and commenting were incredibly ignorant. Oh, I will never be replaced by the machine. I'm a C-level professional. You are kidding me. One, you should be fluid in it. You should be using it to be better at what you do. It's not that hard. So my program teaches about investing in AI, where there's massive amounts of money to be made and some risk, but about enhancing operations and efficiency and job security. And again, older executives, this is potentially a problem. Move those blind spots, identify the blind spots, move that ego aside, and learn. AI could absolutely replace, listen to this, how about this? AI could absolutely replace a CEO within a very short number of years. If the CEO's job is only to make decisions on quantifiable information, existing information and research, and formulate the most critical thinking, which sounds good, and I hear you, it is. But could I make the argument that machines really shortly, if not now, but let's go with shortly, I don't know, 6 months, a year, 2 years, are going to be able to do that better, which goes again back to it's even more than just quantifiable and even more than just specific competency. And these are all going to be great challenges. I also do a masterclass that's dedicated solely to what's your problem? Let me do the analysis. I come back with a dream team and we solve it. Boom. Half a day, 1 day, 2 days, whatever it takes. I don't want to go too deep into a lot of this. On angelorobles.com is some info. Some of you have gotten emails where you can click on a link and it takes you to like a 2-hour preview that I kind of do on one of the master classes. So I have content that you could have. And at the end of the day, by the way, man, that changes like every week. I met someone that changed my 80% of how I feel about family governance. And family governance is hyper important. He's going to be a special guest the following Friday on a live that I'm going to do. And wow, this guy from Switzerland, changed my paradigm and my understanding about family, more than dynamics, about governance and joint decision-making. I know it's not exciting as investing. I hear you, audience. If you're able to grasp this and really understand it, it will make you so powerful that machines won't be able to replace that won't be replaced for a long time. And that could give you an edge. That could give you an opportunity. Now, the other thing that I'll mention about masterclasses, I'm going to give it a little bit of a punch, a little bit of a negative. Let's try to keep it real, right? So Is the best way to learn how to play baseball by reading a book about how to play baseball? No, that might help you a little bit. You need to be mentored. You need to sometimes read it, listen, observe, mentor, hands on. So that is work on a consultative basis, I guess you could say, that I'm willing to do to not only teach from an educational perspective in a master class, but to be hands on and work with you from a perspective of a little bit like my baseball analogy. That's how you're going to become a better player. It's not just from listening or even visually observing, although those could be valuable, of course, but the opportunity to immerse yourself. Imagine if you can learn how to build a house, not by reading a book, but by going with someone who's a talented, hyper good general contractor and spending a whole summer with them. Like, how valuable would that be? So, like, these are things that I'm actually thinking about. I don't know if I really have a model or a pricing model for it yet, but I'm willing to kind of listen and what comes in. So, again, pardon me, I'm very passionate about this. I have lots of thoughts, lots of feelings. And again, this is an industry where you usually don't get more deeper, thoughtful answers. Partially, they don't know what they don't know. So the opportunity for me to pontificate and to have a back and forth with you, Tosh, who I respect, is it's valuable for me, and it helps me at the moment think things through to be better in critical thinking and decision making for me, which hopefully imparts value in terms of the questions that Tosh is asking and topics that I'm bringing up in the family office world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Angela, I know we have like limited time, so I want to say something to the audience that they might not hear very often. And if they do, hopefully they're understanding what that means. There is space at the top. It's the bottom that's crowded. And when
I
we
like that.
talk, yeah, when we talk about why is the top so lonely, it's because people are not willing to pay the price and they don't know what this price looks like, or they're just thinking like poor people. I'll tell you one thing I know for sure. No one will work with rich people thinking like poor people. Like, forget about competency. You people watching, you will not, and I'm letting you know right now, so you don't take it on me when you're not achieving what you want. You will not work for rich people thinking like poor people. And rich people pay for access, pay to shortcut their knowledge, pay to work with more competent people than themselves. So if you are scared of investing in yourself in a masterclass that will shortcut your trajectory years, if not decades, learning with Angelo, his dream team, the amazing guests that he brings, and you're wondering, what are my options? Well, you can go to Harvard if you want. But if you don't go to Harvard and you're not a study of dynamics of wealthy people and want to do that for the next 10, 20 years, as Angelo already paid his dues in the industry, then your best option, and honestly, your only option, is this. That's why I'm so passionate about working with Angelo. And that's why I say you're a great entrepreneur, because you're doing something very noble that I don't want to do. I know there's a problem, which is the top needs more people. We need more winners, right? But I just don't want to teach them. When somebody tells me, oh, a machine is not going to replace me, I don't spend too much time explaining to people why honey is sweeter than shit. Like, I just don't have enough time. But I love that you have that heart, that passion, that you also have identified the problem in the industry, and that you're trying to be a solver for that. So I hope it comes across in all of your content. But just in case there was any doubt, here it is. Here's the truth. Angelo, you're a great entrepreneur. You're trying to solve a big problem in the industry. And yes, I would say that your class is extremely cheap. As an immigrant that comes to the US, I can tell you I've spent so much money in education, in access, in communities, that I could have purchased a house. And my family always says, like, the American dream is to buy a house. I'm like, no, That is their American dream, right? For those that want to work at the top, that is not what we invest in. We invest in our education. We invest in ourselves because it's the biggest asset that we have. We have not the confidence, as you said, but we have the evidence by being competent. We have that evidence that we need to have to know that we can get there, to know that we can be the top 1% and we can help the top 1% in the top 1%. So I don't really have anything else to say. Well, I have a million questions, but for this webinar, I hope for people was very clear what you said. And if I can just summarize it in three different topics, it would be first, like, what is going on in the world? How fast is changing? What type of mindset you have to adapt? Then what are the skills needed in the biggest problem of the families, right? Internally and within their team, communication. And then the last one is just like, please pay for access. If you are really serious about wanting to be the 1%, we in this world, in the high net worth world, we don't have enough time. The velocity is moving faster every time. We need you. But are you willing to get competent, to professionalize yourself soon enough? If that's the case, we have people that want to work with you. If that's not the case, Angelo, you're an activist, but we don't want to work with activists, right? We want to work with people that can solve the problem. So hopefully a lot of these people in the audience will watch it, will ask you questions, and will engage in one way or another. When there's a way, when there's a will, there's a way.
I mean, that's very well said. If I had to leave with a couple of comments, and by the way, I promised, right, the 2 questions that I asked in the email that basically led many of you, you're not going to get the long form answer. I'll do that as a live next week or the following week. So just simply subscribe to my LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, but I will give the short answer in a second. How about this for a little bit of a unique analogy that you never thought would come from me? Why don't you think more, advisor, like Mary Poppins? Now, of course, you're laughing, you're scratching your head. What the hell is Angelo talking about? Kind of here's what Mary Poppins did. Mary Poppins goes into a situation. She identified the problems. She also brought to the surface problems the family had, but didn't quite understand. But here's the important part. She left them with a sense of optimism at the end. And the optimism was the result of the family feeling competent. What did I say about capacity and capability? What did I say about the unity of the family and about governance and decision-making and being thoughtful and critical thinking? So I'm probably the only person that's ever going to give you that analogy. I'm known for a little bit of my quirky thoughts, my philosophy, and some unique things. And this is all a little bit of me as a little bit of a personality, I guess you could say, in an industry that I think not is just bland. I think it's okay to be bland, actually, but is what you're talking about going to be relevant? Oh, I did promise I would hit upon that, and I already did. You could be a historian or you could be a revolutionary. And actually, an historian ain't half bad. Most people aren't even that. They don't study history. They don't have an understanding how it relates even to the family office world. They don't develop a sense of culture and a passion. So being a historian will put you 90% ahead of most people. But if you really want to be awesome and you want to be that top level, you're kind of a revolutionary. That does mean you'll be wrong. So I spoke to the best traders at Goldman, especially back when they could do prop trading back in the day. They're like, Angelo, we're right. Like 42% of the time, like 42%, that's less than 50. But when we're right, sometimes, woo, are we right? And that's a massive run. I don't know, 100x in 2 days or whatever, 500x. but we're wrong a pretty lot. We form a thesis, we make a decision, it's wrong. Oh, well, that's life. We move forward. Maybe we learn something, maybe we don't. Maybe there's not much to learn from the lesson that didn't work. But being a revolutionary, and you all have that in you. There's a little part of my creating and reimagining a family office where we actually teach to be a little bit more, and it's not me, I bring in someone to help on that, on design thinking, to be a little bit more creative in terms of your perspective and how you think, overused to think out of the box. But okay, I promised I would come back to those two questions. So yes, I really did speak last week. That led me to my post on LinkedIn, that led me to lead in a little bit with the email about like, whoa, times are crazy. Stocks somehow are kind of going up this year. I don't really quite know how. They were horrific last year. And, we'll see about moving forward. I think there's lots of challenges ahead. But what this person told me about the affluent families are asking, like, T-bills, they're paying 5%. Hyper safe, short term, say 30 or 90 days. So this person's like, yeah, net of inflation and taxation, I'm kind of a little behind maybe, but that beats the alternative of being way behind, where I don't even have any top line to be a net of that's going to be taken off with inflation and taxes from. So again, if they're really rich, this person's a billionaire, like now the question I had, like, okay, where are you taking the money from? If you're taking it from an equity-like position that's subject to capital gains, now that might be a problem, because now you're going to pay taxes on that to get a 5% return that is going to be lesser than that net of inflation and taxes. I know that, he said, good point, that impacted some of my decision, but Angelo, I'm so concerned about things moving forward that, you know what, that 5% looks pretty damn good, even if I got to bite the bullet on liquidating and paying some fees. Now, those of you on the investing front, boring, T-bills, 30, 90 days. Again, they're already rich. Maybe boring isn't the worst thing in the world. The other part was the question that nobody is asking that kind of concerns a lot of the super rich. And this person got someone as a counterpart to him on the phone when I was there. And then I also reached out to a couple of others, and I kind of knew this already, liquidity, especially with the world getting more and more dangerous. What's now going to happen to inflation? What's going to happen to oil and energy? What's going to happen to the threat of nuclear war? All these things, banks, we saw banks go down this year. And you don't think other banks are in trouble? You don't think that they're over levered? You don't think interest rates are high where a lot of commercial mortgages are going to be in a lot of trouble? Like the families are scared. And these are big families. Maybe they know too much. The more you know, maybe the more you get scared. Maybe it's good sometimes to be somewhat ignorant. And also having liquidity allows you to buy distressed. So having dry powder could be a benefit there too. But if all your money is tied up in LP interest, real estate, private businesses, I know that sounds good long term, but there are some times, depending on the macro environment and geopolitics, where you do have to be tactical, where liquidity could make you feel good. Now, this is not my sovereign risk in disaster prep for billionaires, where I would go hyper deep over like days and days about how to have liquidity outside the US, multiple passports, opportunities in gold, how to structure offshore foundations and trust, both onshore, offshore, where onshore. I mean, that gets really deep. One of the families even inquired to me, they were worth a gazillion billions buying a submarine. I mean, and they said that with no laughing or trying to be funny. They were really actually serious. And yes, I did have to price one out, in case you're wondering. Starts off, I guess, as a ship, converts to a submarine. It was $120 million. And they're like, that's not too bad. Now, again, it's all relative. But on that note, we've taken up a little too much of your time. Many of you I have not seen in a long time. I am more than alive and well. I am incredibly alive, and I'm very well. I'm more passionate than ever before, and I'm able to put my competency and my capability and the capability of my dream team and the work that I could do with you, whether it's through the masterclasses, whether it's through consultative work that comes from the masterclass, which I would recommend, or just straight up consulting, or you know what? I give a fair amount away for free. My LinkedIn, my YouTube, what I'm doing now on Zoom. I'm dropping some pretty good knowledge on you guys. And I gave you my Mary Poppins analogy. Come on, like you're getting some of my best stuff. So absolutely consider me a friend. Consider me a resource. I love this community. I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to be in it probably forever, even if it's not financially needed. I do it because I love it. To me, way more important than making money is my legacy in this community, my brand, my reputation globally, and the opportunity for me to constantly work on being great. Because I know if I stay the same, I'm not really staying the same. I'm slowly going backward, partially because others are putting in the work that I wouldn't be putting in. And I can't allow that to happen. I'm not going to allow that to happen in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. You won't beat me that way. So again, hopefully me and my dream team could provide value. You know how to reach me at angelorobles.com, whether email, phone call, DM on one of my social media platforms. You're going to see a lot of me. Hopefully enjoy it. And I'd love to thank Tosh. Tosh, I might even give the final comments to you, and then basically we'll say goodbye. And audience, again, thank you so much for your time today. Tosh?
Thank you, Angela. I just want to, mention again how grateful I am that there's somebody in the community solving this problem, becoming a bridge between competent advisors and the families that are looking for the type of advisors. I think it's a great mission. I love your vision of how you're doing it. So yes, just keep inviting people to join these spaces. They're free for now. Take advantage of them, then go to the next level when you're ready to go to the next level. And please don't wait. What we don't have is too much time. Thank you everyone for joining us. Angela, thank you so much. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Tosh, solace, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, my live audience. I will share this link with those that registered but couldn't make it, or those that would simply like to rewatch it. It will not be produced. It will simply be the Zoom link. You'll get it as it is. I'm not looking to put this up with a thumbnail, make it beautiful. I may do variations of it as an upcoming live, but you're hearing this at the moment and probably is unique in and of itself and won't necessarily be duplicated in a more open platform. So thank you all very much for your time. Have a great day, everyone.